Hey guys, welcome back to the compound. Today, I'm going to do something that I've been wanting to do for some time now, and that is make the crushed Explorer. I've held off mainly because I wanted to wait until the Explorer set went on clearance, and finally, after waiting long enough, I was able to score one for 20 bucks. And at that price, I can justify destroying a perfectly good Ford Explorer. So the first thing we're going to need to do is take the car apart so we can remove all of the windows, since when the Rex attacks the car, she breaks all of the glass when she flips it over, so we're not going to need any of the windows in there. And this part is pretty straightforward. It's just held together with screws and tabs, so you can just take a small screwdriver, remove all of the screws, and you can either cut the tabs off or try to get them out. You really don't need the tabs. The screws hold everything together, so that's sort of like an optional thing. You don't really have to worry about saving those tabs. So now that I've got the car apart, we need to remove the back driver's side tire, because in the movie, when the Rex flips the car over, she bites down on the tire, ripping it off, leaving the rim exposed. To remove the tire, I'm just taking a flathead screwdriver and gently prying at the tire until it pops off. Once you get the tire off, you can then remove the axle and the intact tire and set it aside. So the main thing I'm after here is the yellow rim, so I can make a bare rim out of it to attach to the axle. So what I need to do is heat up the plastic a little just to make it easy to cut through, and once I do that, I can take my snippers and trim away all of the tire from the rim, and then I'll take my Dremel out and sand the rest of the black plastic off until all I have left is the yellow rim. To make the back of the rim, I found this lid thing that's the same diameter as the rim, so I'll just glue that down and set it aside for now, because later on I'll make a resin copy of this so it's one solid piece and I can drill through and attach it to the axle. But now that all of those shenanigans are done, I'll reassemble the car and then we can start to crush it. So to go about this, I'm going to use my heat gun and crank it up to medium heat, which is hot enough to melt plastic, and I'll concentrate the heat on the top of the car to soften up the plastic a little bit, and then I'll take my snippers and I'll cut off that red roof just to remove some of that bulk material to make the crushing easier. Now that the plastic is starting to get really hot, I'll lay it down on this metal tray so I don't melt my workbench mat, and I'll focus the heat on the sides of the car, and then while the plastic is hot, I'll use some muscle and just press down and squish the car flat. Now that we've got the car crushed, it's time for the fun part, and that is messing this thing up by throwing down a bunch of mud deco all over it. But before I do that, I want to real quick take some black paint and paint in the trim sections around the windows. This doesn't have to be perfect or too neat because we'll be slinging a bunch of mud all over it. Alright, so now it is time to get messy, and now there is no right or wrong way to mess this car up. So just grab some brown paint or inks, just mix a bunch of colors together and start to slap it on all over the body. You want to do like heavy in some spots and maybe lighter in others. Just be random and organic with it. But once I got all of my dirt wash scrubbed all over the car, I took a rag and I started to blot and wipe away parts of the paint off of the car in certain areas. You also want to make sure that you get that same paint mix and hit the seats on the inside. Pretty much want to make sure every inch of the car gets a wash with that dirt mix. Once that wash is down and it's dried, I'm going to go back in with some different brown acrylic paints, and I'm not thinning these paints down. This is the one time you don't have to worry about thinning your paints down. You want to cake it on. You want to make it look like it's just mud slapped all over the side of it. And I'm just going to take my paintbrush and dab that on, just to kind of give some muddy variation to the body. And then I'll go back in with that rag again and just blot the random sections away to give the mud some splatter texture. You really want this thing to look like the Rex just got a hold of it, so it doesn't have to be pretty. So with all the mud down, the last little touch of paint will be some dry brushing with some silver, just to make the metal look scraped and damaged. So I'll just get some on an old beater brush here and start to dry brush the underside of the car, hitting all the edges and corners. And I'll also do some dry brushing on the brush guard and some of the edges on the body of the car, just to kind of, sell that beat up damaged effect. So the car is all done, and all I need to do now is make my bare rim. So I've got it hot glued inside of a little cup here, and I'll mix up some silicone rubber and pour a little mold. It takes about 75 minutes for the rubber to cure, but with the magic of video editing, we can just jump right over to the cured rubber with the resin copy that I poured. So before I paint this, I just want to drill a hole in it for the axle to go in, and once that's done, I'll grab some yellow spray paint and give this thing a couple coats of yellow, and then I'll glue the bare rim onto the axle, and then I'll just go back through with that mud paint and dirty up the rim. But after all of that destruction, we are finally done, and this thing turned out better than I expected. I've also got the Rex on top of it, as you can see here, looking super awesome. I also added a chunk of tire from a cheap military vehicle as a little bonus accessory, but all in all, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. It's something I've been wanting to do for so long now, and I'm stoked to finally have the Crushed Explorer for all of my photography and my display here at the compound. So hopefully you found this video helpful if you've been wanting to crush an Explorer but didn't know where to start. If you give this a shot, remember to tag me over on Instagram at the Jurassic Park compound, because I'd love to see how your Explorer turns out. But in the meantime, if you need more Jurassic related content, or you want to see some more glamour shots of this car, you can check out more of my photos over on Instagram. So that's all I've got for this video. You guys take care, and I'll see you around the compound.